Welcome, everybody, to the RPO Football YouTube page. My name is Matthew Montgomery, and today we are going to be doing the IDP 5 for Week 14. In most leagues, this is probably the last regular season week of the year to try to get into the playoffs or potentially improve your seeding in the playoffs or to sort of avoid that league punishment, depending on what kind of crazy league you are in. So make sure that today, if you are watching this video, learn, grow, take the advice or fade the advice and let me know what you think. But this is probably the most crucial week of the year for some managers. So let's, without further ado, get started on the IDP 5. All right, you know how we do this? Too good, too bad, one sleeper. The first good I'm going to talk about this week is Xavier Woods, the safety for the Carolina Panthers. Xavier Woods is a player who has been kind of under the radar for a little bit. This season, he's currently 11th overall at the position for safety, but he has going against some of those guys that have not had a bye week yet. So realistically, I would estimate he's probably in that 7 to 9 range as far as actual game over game production. And for a player that we don't really talk about, I think that's kind of surprising. A lot of people believe that safeties are a dime a dozen, and I don't necessarily disagree with that statement. But what I believe separates him from the dime a dozen type players is he has a safe tackle floor. Specifically, over the last 3 games, he has 23 total tackles. That's a little over 7 a game. And when you're getting tackle floors like that from a safety or a dime a dozen position, and you have a little bit of an increase on that, that's just a little bit of an edge that you're going to have over your opponent. And this time of the year, even if it's 2 to 3 points, that is a necessary evil. That is foundation, that is consistency that you want to have in your matchup. He is pacing currently for a career high in tackles, and that is saying something. The guy's played in the league for a little over 8 years, so it's not a sexy name. He's a bit of a journeyman. He's kind of found a home here in Carolina. We have seen Carolina safeties do well this season and in the past, and I believe that he is going to remain consistent. He is still going to be a player that you want to have in your lineup, and he is trending up not only just in redraft or for this season, but in Dynasty. I do believe he can do this for the next couple of years. Hell, Harrison Smith's damn near 40 years old, and he is still performing at a high level at this position. So maybe it's not as hard to play into the twilight years of your career at this position. But regardless, we're not talking about then. We're not talking about when we get there. We are talking about the here and now. And I believe that Xavier Woods can help you get into the playoffs. You just have to have the stones to start him over some of the sexier names in the league. The second player I'm going to talk about should come as no surprise to anybody because he's quite frankly one of the best players in the league. But I want to highlight one of my favorite traditions of the holiday season. No, it's not Thanksgiving. No, it's not going and looking at Christmas lights or Christmas caroling. It is watching elite level production from TJ Watt. TJ Watt, I feel like he saves his best plays of the year for November, December, and January. And because of that, we've seen him grow into a potential, I think he's first ballot Hall of Famer. He absolutely exploded this past week. He had 3 total tackles, all for a loss, 2 sacks, and again, we're doing this in the playoff run. One of the most exciting parts about TJ Watt that I want to point out is he has arguably the most favorable schedule of an edge rusher for the rest of the season. To finish the season in the fantasy playoffs, he goes against Cleveland, Philadelphia, and Baltimore, all of which are in the bottom 2/3 of the league against edge rushers. Simply put, they're bad against defending against this position, and he's the best in the league. So no doubts. Don't get cute this time of year. Start your studs, whatever buzz terms and words you want to use. But the fact of the matter remains that TJ Watt's a Hall of Fame level player, and it is because he waits until the prime moments to perform, and he is doing so right now. And last week is the wake-up call. It's almost like when you thaw Mariah Carey out of that ice and you start hearing All I Want for Christmas Is You. The same can be said for seeing TJ Watt explode with multi-sack games in November and December. All right, the first player I'm going to talk about negatively who's bumming me out is Divine Diablo. And for those of you who have followed my content over the past 1.5 to 2 years know that I was a huge fan of Divine Diablo and his potential in the league. But I have been burned so many times that I'm going to come here, I'm going to fall on the sword and tell you I was wrong and I'm done with him. I can't do this anymore. The Las Vegas Raiders play two linebackers consistently, just two. They do a rotation here and there for a third player, but majority of the time it is just Robert Spillane and Divine Diablo. And in most cases, I would go, okay, cool. The second guy, he's still playing a consistent and healthy amount of snaps, so the opportunity is there for points. The problem is Diablo is not doing enough with these snaps for me to be even thinking about starting him. He's also kind of dwindling on the is he really worth rostering for depth? Because I believe that you can have 10 or 15 Divine Diablo level players on waivers currently. So why is he worth the roster spot? I don't believe he is, and I'm done with it. I think he's a good player. I think he's been riddled with injuries over the past 2 years, which has really hurt his ascension to reaching his ceiling. And I believe that the player we're seeing now is likely the player we're at least going to see for the rest of the year. But even moving forward in Dynasty, I'm cold on him. I think the magic has worn off. I think the Raiders as a whole have a problem on the defensive side of the ball, which is another pretty big miss for me. And until I see some sort of significant change or a player on that defense not named Robert Spillane or Max Crosby step up into the echelon, I'm probably out and selling all my stock on the Las Vegas Raiders. So hopefully Divine Diablo proves me wrong. I just don't see it happening, and I'm sorry if I've steered you the wrong way, folks. The second player that I'm down on this week is Derek Hall, the edge rusher for the Seattle Seahawks. I want to start by saying that Derek Hall is playing well this season. He's only had one real year of opportunity, and for the most part this season, he's been pretty good. He's got 31 total tackles and 6 sacks, and like I said, he's only played really this season, so it might as well be his rookie year. But the last 2 weeks, it's been pretty bad. We're talking 3 total tackles over the course of the last 2 weeks, 2 of those being assists. That player as an edge rusher getting those stats is a weak losing type of a player. We have to have consistency. I believe that Derek Hall will eventually get to this level of play where we can just set him and forget. I think he does have that potential. But right now, we're in the weeks that matter the most. We're in the money weeks. This is truly why we do this. If you're playing the game of fantasy football, it's not to look at your team for 14 weeks and be happy. It is to have a good team for 14 weeks and then have the best team for the last 4. But Derek Hall is not contributing to the best team narrative that you need. And I believe because of that, we need to start looking at other options at the position. I think he's a great dynasty player. I wouldn't cut him. I wouldn't trade him in the offseason. I wouldn't get fancy with it. I just simply think that until we see the magic come back or maybe a little bit better opportunities for the defense for Seattle, I just don't see him contributing to a winning team. And I think we can get trapped with the what ifs on him as a 23-year-old as opposed to what we are seeing over the course of the last 2 weeks. And for that, I'm bummed. I'm out on him. I'm sorry, Derek Hall. I love you. I can't wait to watch you play again next season. You have been a beast this season. But I'm not going to start you on my playoff teams. And that kind of kills my vibe. All right, guys. It's time for this week's sleeper. Who's the guy that's going to set you apart from your opponent? Who is somebody that you knew before anybody else did? This week, it's Troy Dye, the Los Angeles Chargers linebacker. The Chargers are right now dealing with a Denzel Perryman groin injury that has put him out of action for the last 2 weeks. And in the first week, we saw Nick Neiman get a slice of the pie. He got the majority of the snaps, and he did okay. He wasn't a bad player. But this week, the script flipped, and we saw Troy Dye get the majority of the snaps. And what did he do? He had 14 total tackles. We'll say it one more time. 14. 7 solo and 7 assisted tackles, and a pass defended as a little cherry on top. So if Denzel Perryman doesn't play this week, I am 100% all in, chips in the middle, putting Troy Dye in my lineup. And yes, that is bold. Yes, that is risky. It gives me a little bit of the butterflies in my stomach. But I'm telling you, you don't win leagues if you don't take big swings, especially this time of year. One little nugget, all right? This can blow up in your face. It can. If Perryman plays, he's not a sleeper. He's not even going to be somebody I would worry about. But if Perryman doesn't play and you have him on your roster, man, you have picked up a double-digit tackle linebacker in the playoff push of your IDP leagues. I don't care how stout you are at the linebacker position. Picking up a guy that can go off for 14 tackles in his first real game of action this season is somebody I want to keep an eye on and somebody I want on my roster to keep, even if it's just to keep away from my opponent. So Troy Dye, he is the sleeper of the week. He is the guy that I'm going to be intently watching. I have him. I've got waiver claims all over the place. I've got fab bids on him. I've got everything that you can possibly imagine as far as my chips in the middle to get him on my roster because I know that having the depth at an important position in IDP is crucial to winning championships. So Troy Dye is your sleeper of the week. All right, thanks again, everybody. Hopefully, we are all in playoff contention, or we're at least with some wiggle room. Maybe we need some help from people above us, or maybe we're just looking down on the competition because we've already secured that bye week. But regardless of your why, thank you so much for watching this YouTube video. My name is Matthew Montgomery. Again, you're on the RPO Football YouTube page. You can find all of my written content at footballguys.com. I do a weekly IDP stock market, so please follow, reach out there. Tell me what you think. I am also on X and all of the socials, really, at MattMontyFF. Please follow, like, retweet, subscribe, all those fancy things. You can find me on all of those social media sites. And remember why we do this, guys. We don't do this to play week 1 through 14. We do this to make the playoffs and win championships. I don't care if it's an internet plaque. It's a championship. It's a trophy. It's bragging rights. We do this to win. So we are at the money weeks now. So make the big risky plays. Go all in on your players. Trust your gut. Whatever fancy cliche you want to use. But just remember, at the end of the day, this is why we do this. It's fun. So have fun doing this. And of course, as always, go win your leagues.